Have you ever gotten incomprehensible results from your tarot deck? I'm not talking about when you start getting answers that you don't want to hear. That's not what this is about. This is when you start drawing cards, card after card, that has nothing to do with the question at hand. This can be extremely frustrating because it can lead to missed opportunities. If you are using your tarot deck to divine before you do spell casting, it can lead to mistakes in spell casting. And if you're using your tarot to get into things like shadow work or your subconscious, it can lead to mistaken ideas about personal issues. So today, in this video, I'm going to go over a way to choose a tarot deck that resonates with you, and so that you can have better readings. First off, we gotta ask why you would want to take the time finding a deck that resonates with you, instead of just using the deck that your sister got from the mall a few years ago. Well, when you have a tarot deck, there's a relationship between the cards and the reader that requires trust and chemistry, or at least it should be there in order for you to be getting good results. What I do is I use my tarot deck to divine before my spells, to do deep inner work, and for daily card pulls. And in that manner, this isn't something that I would do with just some random stranger, and I wouldn't do that with a deck that I'm not intimately familiar with. And I suspect that if you're watching this video, it's because you feel the same way about card reading and tarot, and your current deck isn't working for you. So let's find one that does. We witches love our tarot decks, and that's for many reasons. The first off is that tarot has a rich history. It has been used for hundreds of years, so that each card now has layered meanings. Like, the interpretations into the cards are pretty much standardized now, and so witches love that. You can pull any card from any deck and you are going to get the same meaning card after card after card. What this means is that you can get nuanced personal answers to questions that you ask. So the other reason that we love decks and tarot is because, especially nowadays, they come in such a vast variety of images and of types and themes that basically, if you can dream it, you most likely can find a tarot deck of it. And this gives us the ability to express our personality and to find something that truly gets us. And so the question is, with so many choices, how do you choose a deck? You can end up with choice paralysis at times when you start scrolling the internet or go into a metaphysical store and see, get confronted with this huge wall of tarot decks. So the way that I go about choosing a tarot deck is twofold. The first part is the aesthetics of the deck, and the second part involves interviewing the deck. And we're going to go over both of those parts in this video. When I talk about aesthetics, what I mean is you want to look for decks that have art that you love. You are going to be looking at these cards day after day after day. So you want to have art that you find beautiful or charming or quirky or cute. Whatever your personal style is, you want something that you're gonna like looking at. If the art makes you recoil, or even if it just doesn't inspire you, then that's a good clue that that's not the deck for you. And you're gonna find a good dozen decks that will fit that first criteria. And then how do you then narrow down the choices? Well, then you're going to look at and evaluate how these decks feel. How do the cards feel in your hand? How do they feel when you shuffle them? Do they have like a weird coating on them that gives you the ick when you touch it? Do they have a smell that you don't like? Because again, a lot of these cards can have coatings that'll give them a scent that can like kick off your scent sensitivities. And these are things that, yes, cards are going to change with time and use, but you want something that starting right out of the gate, they feel good in your hand. You also want to look at things like, does the deck come with a booklet so that it may have some very specific meanings for the art and the cards. Is the box that it comes in sturdy, or are you going to need to put it in a tarot pouch when you aren't using the cards? These are considerations to take into account, and it may be difficult for you to actually handle the cards before you get the deck, but I highly recommend that you try. See if there's an open box at the store. Ask to see if you can just pull it out and touch them. It's only going to take touching one or two to get that you're going to have an immediate response of, yes, this feels good, or no, it doesn't feel good. So take some time, look at the aesthetics, look at how it looks, how it feels, how it smells. I mean, don't go into tasting, don't like your tarot cards, but take into account your senses. Like, how does it sound when you shuffle them? Stuff like that. Then, once you get, that should narrow it down to a particular deck or one or two decks that you are now considering. And it's really tempting, especially if you've narrowed it down to one deck, to immediately jump right into readings and start working with it. But I implore you not to skip the interview part, because that's the most important and the most fun part of this process. Interviewing a deck simply involves asking a series of questions as a get-to-know-you exercise. It allows you to find out if you and this deck are going to be a good fit. I like to compare it to the first date after you've swiped right. You are now getting into the nitty-gritty of finding out if there's chemistry between the two of you. So how do we interview our deck? You're going to first give it a really good shuffle, and this gives you time to connect with the cards and also get ready for questions. Get ready to give your questions. While you're shuffling, focus on, what do I want to know from this deck? Are we a compatible match? What is it working together going to look like? And once you have shuffled, then you're ready to ask your questions. There are dozens of different interview spreads on Pinterest and the internet. You can go out and you can do a bunch of do searches and find these interview spreads out there. But I tend to find that the best way to interview a deck is just the one question, one card poll. So that's what you're going to do. After you've shuffled, you're going to put your deck down and you're going to ask these questions and pull a card after you ask each question. And that's going to give you a good look into whether or not this is the right deck for you. So the questions are, what are your feelings about me? How best could we work together? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? If we work together, what will be the outcome? Take the time to look at the cards one by one as you pull them, and then after you have pulled them, you're going to do an overview of the answers that you gave, and look at the cards. Look at what has come up. And if the deck comes with a booklet, you're going to want to reference that booklet, because a booklet, tarot, yes, each card has an historic meaning to it, a meaning that has been developed over centuries that is universal, but the different kinds of decks are like dialects, and your deck may have been made with particular nuanced meanings to the cards. So that's why you're going to want to use the booklet if it comes with one, as well as the more universal meanings. These questions are going to dig into the heart of what your working relationship could look like. So you want to look not only to the individual cards that match the individual answers, but look at the entire, like all 5 that you have drawn, what the overview of those cards is. And this will give you your answers as to whether or not this is a good fit, and also gives you once again a chance to feel that, how it feels when you shuffle them, when you pull them, and all these kind of micro information that comes together for the larger whole. Now that you've gone through the interview portion, if the answers given in the interview aren't positive, that's a sign that this deck, as pretty as it is not a good match. If the answers are positive, then you can start working with your deck. Don't be afraid to start over and to do this process with multiple decks before you find one that you vibe with. When I had to go through, and when my old deck stopped working for me, I went through and I interviewed a good dozen before I settled on one that I was like, okay, we can work together. So this is a process. Don't let it dissuade you. Don't feel burdened by the fact that it's a process or overwhelmed. Instead, view it as a way of strengthening your witchy powers, of learning more about yourself and what you want in a magical tool, and of getting your knowledge, working on your knowledge base, that you're learning more about the individual interpretations of the cards. So something to keep in mind now that you have your new deck and that you're working with it is you're going to want to regularly cleanse it. This was the issue with my previous deck, which was the Herbal Tarot deck, is that I never cleaned it. Like, not once since the time that I got it. And then it stopped working. It was so gunked up with negative energy and with all of these just conflicting emotions and spiritual and magical grime that it just gave up the ghost. And that's the reason it stopped working for me. Now, right now, it's in a tarot wrap with a piece of selenite, and it's going through a very deep magical detox because I would like to be able to get back to it and work with it again. But I recognize now that I was being a irresponsible witch in that regards. So the deck I use now, which is the Yarn Tarot, I cleanse it every month. And that is because I want to have a long-term working relationship with it, and I don't want it to get gunky like that again. Ways that you can cleanse your tarot deck, it's the easiest and the most powerful is to set it underneath the light of a full moon. Do that once every full moon. Just put your tarot deck out so that it can absorb the light of the moonlight so it can cleanse itself. You can also smoke cleanse it or use crystals. Like I said, selenite is a great cleansing stone, and do that regularly. And also do it after if you do a reading where there's a lot of emotions coming up, where the cards have some very deep and important lessons to give to you, give it a cleanse then as well. Treat it as you would treat any other tool in your witchy toolbox and maintain it so that you can continue your relationship with it for many, many years. I hope that you found this video helpful in choosing your next tarot deck. If you would like to make a tarot wrap for your deck that has space for you to do a 3-card spread, I have made a tutorial on how to make an easy one. I'll have the link to that in the description so that you can find that tutorial absolutely free. And if you want to read more about my recent finding a new tarot deck, I will have the link to that blog post in the description as well. Again, don't be turned off by the idea of finding a new tarot deck. Don't feel like it is this huge, complicated task. It's very easy. Look for the aesthetics, do the interview, find that next tarot deck that's going to work for you. Good luck and blessed be.